Aurlunor. Officially, the Aurlunor Velande, which in Traveler's Tongue means Sun Dragon Empire, is a nation located in southern Siltor. Its capital city is Lumar, located on the northern coast of the Gulf of Heaven and subsection of the Western Sea. Additionally, it shares an overseas territorial border with the Cetera to the northwest, the Imperial Center to the southeast, and the Zamoth Union to the north. Its official religion and state ideology is the Twin Dragon. It is by far the largest majority elven-ruled nation in the world. The Aurlunor Velande is located in western Siltor, along the northern shores of the Sea of Lothranis. It also borders the western edge of the Phagosian Sea in some areas. In the north, there are conifer forests and mountains, in particular the Mons del Nors and Mons del Mornen, which form the Fornoisen Range. The Soren River flows through the Valley of Fornoise, and it is in this river valley that much of Alvada province's population lives. The valley has a warmer climate than the mountains, and its fertile soil allows larger cities like Dracovian to thrive. The Great Timber Expanse is a particularly rich conifer forest to the north. It is protected by law, but regulated logging is permitted. Prior to Aurlunor Velande's existence, varying people groups had inhabited the region for over 74,000 years. Settling mostly in the region known as the Heartlands, the Dawit people groups, also known as the Gurin, were advanced in the fields of agricultural practices and the building of hill forts. The Kamiho settled in the southwest regions of the country and established a loose confederation of states, which eventually became its own queendom later on. The Serenmai would also establish their own respective kingdom of Olara, and the city-state of Sakura as its capital. The region is largely credited as the first area where elves of Rathnir began their journey along the varying elven migrations that happened over the course of a few thousand years. The people known as Celestial Elves would settle in modern-day Takua province as the Ardol culture, eventually expanding out north to become the Kingdom of Almador. Fighting would occur between the native humans of the region, where the elves caused a series of conflicts known as the Maxionic Conquests. Almador would rule for over 10,000 years until its ultimate demise and downfall, splitting into multiple warring states. Out of this chaos, two powers known as the Kingdom of Lin and the Kingdom of Melwinde were established and became conquering the smaller states. What would become the modern-day Aurlunor Velande appeared as a warlord state led by its first and current Velarith, Sererial Leila Ikarla, conquering both states, which brought an end to the warlord period. Aurlunor would eventually become a regional powerhouse in southern Siltor by conquering most of its neighbors. They eventually claimed the mantle of the old Amadora kings and solidified its foundation. It also became the center of science and learning thanks to some of the most important inventions such as gunpowder, paper, banknotes, advanced sail design, and many other advanced technologies. The Aurlunor Velande is currently governed as an absolute divine monarchy, ruled by the Enatic dynastical system and the imperial court. The country is often mistaken as a matriarchy, despite only the throne being matriarchal, while many other seats in the government are meritocratic. Aurlunor is a former founding member of the Siltor League and a former member of the Siltor Confederation. Before its dissolution, Aurlunor was the head of a dual monarchy together with Ryzan, known as the Aurlunorian Ryzani Empire. Aurlunor is often placed low on civil liberties, government transparency, freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and is often accused of having among the worst records of treatment of ethnic minorities, despite the fact that the country has reportedly granted citizenship to non-celestial elves. Aurlunor is also often criticized as an elven state, and is often targeted due to administration not being ruled by the human majority, unlike many of its Siltor contemporaries. Despite being regarded as having restrictive freedom for its population, Aurlunor is often regarded as Siltor's most stable nation, ranking very high on multiple tests of stability, regardless of the incident of Nocturus, which nearly plunged the country into collapse. Aurlunor is also often praised for being one of the most immersive countries in the world, with it leading the way in the meta of role-playing, and is regarded as one of the more peaceful nations, not having interests in major territorial expansion. Aurlunorian culture is among the most diverse in the world in the western Siltor region. The Almadorian culture that was left over from the remnants of the kingdom still linger within the Aurlunorian Velande and is still present in everyday life. Unlike the Almadorians, the Aurlunorians adopted many aspects of Gurin cultures, most notably Dawu culture, blending it together with the Almadorian culture, creating a unique identity in the styles of architecture and multiple traditions. Aspects of the Dawu people can be seen today in Lumar, with the presence of holidays such as Dragon Day, which is actually celebrated twice a year, and the New Year's festival held every 12th of Mare. The Velande is often known as the cultural capital of the Western Siltor and continues to show itself as a shining example of a nation with rich culture. The Celestial Elves are attributed to the majority of the population, making Aurlunor Velande the largest elven majority-ruled nation in the world. The second largest race are humans, which make up the largest minority race in the region. Behind them are Kumiho, who mostly live in the Hampo and Vorosen provinces, though some have been observed living in other areas in the Velande. The Dune Elves live mostly in the Ashuran Desert and the Sharla and Yurme provinces, as well as a vast Salem province in the Min Desert. The Saran make up a small minority in the southern Hampo, mostly in the city of Abalia and on the island of Nekua. Nekujin live as a minority within the province of Tamaka, mostly in the city of Nekomar and the Nekomar Steppe. Other minority races and ethnicities live within the Velande. The official religion of the Aurlunor Velande is a twin dragon. Under the Imperial Constitution, Twin Dragon is state-mandated, and it is forbidden to worship any organized religion such as Selenian. Following an outside religion may often lead to harsh punishment under heresy laws. Unorganized faiths are illegal to worship as long as they are syncretic with the state faith and are counted as Twin Dragon worship. The area occupied in modern-day Velande was once occupied exclusively by human tribes. These tribes are known collectively as Gurin, ancestors of the most modern Aurlunorian humans. Approximately 11,000 years ago, the Elven migration period began, which coincided with the advent of agriculture among the Gurin and the settlements of Kumiho and Hampo. The ancestors of Celestial Elves established a capital in the city of Ardal in the modern-day Takua province. An elven king by the name of Maxin the Conqueror consolidated the various elves on the Lothrian Sea's west coast, where they began the conquest of the northern territories. He founded the kingdom of Almador, the predecessor of the Aurlunor Velande, and placed his capital in the settlement known as Sakumar. Almador would begin a period of conquest, dominating the other Gurin kingdoms as well as the Kumiho. The rule of Almador was legalistic and at many times excessively cruel. Rebellions were crushed and non-elves were commonly enslaved. However, during the centuries through which the kingdom lasted, the imperial humans and the Kumiho were eventually assimilated to become equals. Almador would eventually fall into chaos following the mismanagement of King Hirian and a large famine. Governors broke away from the central government to form their own kingdoms, beginning the Warlord period, or the Warring States period. The following 1,000 years of conflict would see nearly a third of the population waste away from war, disease, and famine. One small city-state that broke away was led by a local warlord by the name of Sererial Lela Ikarla. She would capture the fishing village that would later become the modern Lumar, and declared the founding of Aurlunor Velande following the defeat of the kingdoms of Melwende and Linye. The various elven kingdoms that occupied old Almadoran lands would be swept up by the new Velerith, though many Almadoran territories were occupied by foreign governments. Years of strife and instability followed the founding of the Velande, but with the reform and stability of their central government, the lives of the people improved as famine was eradicated and peace returned to the land. Aurlunor's early days on the surface saw the country dominated by foreign nations, and the Velande found itself in the whims of larger external powers. Aurlunor joined the Siltur Confederation, but Bardonia vassalized Aurlunor for a brief period as the confederation broke apart. However, during its time as a vassal of Bardonia, Aurlunor still remained autonomous and was able to take back old Almadoran lands, first with the Treaty of Smoganik between Aurlunor and Takamakan, and the later partition of Takamakan altogether. After leaving Bardonia vassaldom, Sererial entered a marriage with Delatra Mosulia of Ardat or Yimu Adal, and later Canadian Toss of Ryzan, which would create the Aurlunor-Ryzan Union State. Afterwards, the first Bardonian rally was launched. From its membership in the Siltor Confederation, Aurlunor temporarily acquired Northlorn as a vassal state and integrated the country of Fornois as a province as its leader retired. Around this time, Aurlunor began a period of political isolation that is still seen in present day. While foreign volunteers proved indispensable to fighting squatters in the barbarian rallies, the institution of the Sleeping Dragon Doctrine meant that Aurlunor would no longer involve itself in unnecessary foreign entanglements and focus on improving its internal strength and relations with only its neighbors. It is through this isolation that many Aurelian citizens and external observers explain the relative stability of the regime compared to other nations in Rathnir. The Aurlunor-Rizani Empire period proved to be chaotic and disastrous, with the second barbarian rally occurring at this time, and Sererial eventually divorced Tsar Canadian Toss. The third barbarian rally occurred as Aurlunor went further down its isolationist path, and it concluded the debacle of the Rathnir inconclusive second rally. However, the Great Fire of Holomar occurred during the rally, burning the city down and destroying the old Takamakan architecture. This was a catalyst for the beginning of Maumeli and Ja'al the engineers' political careers, as their effort in rebuilding the city earned Mao a position in Nir Province's governor and Ja'al as a governmental minister. After participating in the Ferryman War, peace and prosperity returned to Aurlunor. Aurlunor saw rapid expansion of its national borders, including land in Eldom, a large population increase, the founding of the Dragon Navy, and many internal building projects such as the Imperial Palace. A near-miss war with the Ryzani Republic in roughly 937 ACA, spurred on by the actions of Daifuto and Entropy, who was a nemesis of Rariel at the time, contributed to further souring relations with Ryzan and closer ties to Bardonia that would continue until the Allium Coalition War in August. The Golden Age also saw the insurrection of the Ryzan tribe known as the Grey Banner, who until 939 ACA were hated vehemently by the Aurelian imperial court as they snuck through the cities, stole, and planted IEDs across Aurlunor. Eventually, diplomacy between the two parties was reached, and Aurlunorian volunteers helped the former banner establish the state of Kirdorsil. The fourth barbarian rally, this time in Eldom, was resolved without bloodshed, as Sererial left temporarily. Maumeli was promoted to Chancellor, and Sel Leila Ikarla was promoted to Imperial Regent until Velwer's return. As squatters overran the country in late Tartalen, the fifth barbarian rally, the largest to date, was announced, and Björnsburg was acquired as a vassal. Despite having been a former Bardonian vassal, Sererial kept good relations with Bardonia, who signed a mutual defense pact with Aurlunor. Kaiser Lucius von Savarus of Andorn, which was then part of Bardonia, married Sererial, further cementing Bardonian ties. When the Allium War broke out in 939, Aurlunor initially joined in on the Bardonian side against the Third Coalition. However, diplomatic breakdowns led to official withdrawals as a full combatant in the war, and Aurlunor instead only supported the Allium alliance with a single volunteer, Hydra Blackwater, who would go on to fight in the Battle of New Durestarok. The Bardonian Spring saw Andorn and others secede from Bardonia, allowing Aurlunor and the newly freed nations to found the Siltor League. The League was a mutual defense organization to protect the northeastern states against foreign intervention and improve intracontinental trade by building roads and highways. While the League did help in the construction, and the League members participated in the Fifth Barbarian Rally and other conflicts, it slowly disintegrated into uselessness as it proved to be ineffective in keeping the peace in Ryzan. The Imperial Autumn was a period of relative decline that was observed as the month of Harveus in 940 ACA came to a close. War with the Force Council squatters, the Great Eclipse, a subsequent famine and lockdown, and the bombing of Twin Dragon temples during the war in Ryzan all occurred over the course of the Imperial Autumn. The war in Ryzan also led to the annexation of the Dietzen region in the Malian province because the Ryzani state soon ceased to exist. Nocturus of 941 ACA saw the influx of many squatters into Hampo province, including Islos and the Legion of Alexander, and the tightening of religious laws, including a ban on syncretic Selenian twin dragon. The disappearance of Sererial threw the whole of Velande into crisis. A regency council composed of Mel Lelia Ikarla, Minister Nori, and Chancellor Maumeli took charge to guide the young heir Lanfin Leila Ikarla in her mother's footsteps. Hazel McSpiegel was made the new celestial matron, technically separating the Twin Dragon Temple and the Aurlunor Velande government for the first time in any meaningful manner. The death of the Siltor League was proclaimed by the Chancellor Mao, as Aurlunor and his ally Northorn were left as the sole founding members in the western Siltor region. This prompted an incursion into the acquisition of the southern provinces by the Huidica Federation, whose leader claimed they had a right over the lands due to Viridian, a former independent Huidican state, once controlling the lands. Diplomatic talks broke down in the imperial court, and war seemed to be on the horizon, but renegotiation and urges from the rest of the Huidican government de-escalated the situation. Despite the hardships of diplomacy, the Aurlunor Velande and his people persisted in building and maintaining a rich national culture. Lasting over a year on the server, Aurlunor citizens and leaders kept strong and built many towns and temples across the land and created beautiful artworks to share with the world. Sererial would return in the year 942 ACA and would continue the golden age that has influxed on the Velande, and would see to this day its glory days once again return. Hello everybody, I highly recommend you all to go check out these wiki pages. I've never had a nation send me so many wikis for one video, so I really could only pull from one of them, and even so I had to cut out a lot of information. So if you're really into lore and history and just storytelling in general, definitely check out Aurlunor's lore and history pages. So you really shouldn't be missing out if this is something that you're really into. So check the links down below in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I appreciate you all very much. Have a wonderful day.